What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton didn't lose the Hungarian Grand Prix before the race even started, because of a mistake he made? What if the first mistake actually came from Ferrari? For one incredible hour on Saturday afternoon, Hamilton looked unstoppable. He topped practice, dominated the most important part of qualifying, and appeared ready to take his first pole position with Ferrari. The SF26 was fast, balanced, and perfectly suited to the demanding corners of the Hungaroring. Everything was going exactly according to plan, but Formula One is a sport where a few seconds of confusion can destroy an entire weekend. And that's exactly what happened to Ferrari. The strange part is that Hamilton's speed was never the problem. In fact, Ferrari may have had the fastest car of the entire weekend. The first signs appeared on Friday during FP2, when Hamilton finished fastest, with Charles Leclerc right behind him to complete a Ferrari 1-2. McLaren, expected by many to dominate in Hungary, suddenly looked vulnerable. Lando Norris was almost half a second slower, while Oscar Piastri struggled to match Ferrari's pace consistently. The reason was simple. Strong winds around the Hungaroring were upsetting the balance of many cars, but Ferrari's SF26 remained stable and predictable. Hamilton could attack corners with confidence while other drivers fought understeer and instability. By the end of Friday, one thing had become clear: Ferrari was not just competitive, they were favorites for pole position, but Saturday qualifying told a different story. Q1 belonged to McLaren. Norris immediately set the pace with a 1-minute 18.277 second lap, nearly 3/10 faster than Kimi Antonelli and Max Verstappen. Hamilton, running the medium tire, could only manage fourth, while Leclerc ended the session down in ninth. To viewers watching live, it looked as if Ferrari had suddenly disappeared. But appearances can be misleading. Ferrari had chosen a different strategy. Rather than chasing lap times immediately, they focused on preparing the tires for the later stages of qualifying. And when Q2 arrived, the true pace of the SF26 finally appeared. Hamilton and Leclerc were suddenly more than 2/10 faster than everyone else. Ferrari had become the team to beat. While the spotlight remained on the fight for pole, there were impressive performances throughout the field. Isaac Hadjar once again showed his qualifying speed. Nico Hülkenberg placed Audi inside the top 10, and Liam Lawson missed Q3 by only 0.126 seconds. Every thousandth mattered. And soon, those tiny margins would decide everything. Then came Q3. Hamilton's first lap was almost perfect. A stunning 1-minute 17.219 second lap placed him around a tenth ahead of Norris, who had made a small mistake at the final corner. For the first time all weekend, Hamilton looked destined to claim his first Ferrari pole position. Inside the Ferrari garage, belief was growing. The wait was finally over. Then the track changed. Track temperatures approached 50 degrees Celsius. Grip levels shifted, and tires overheated more quickly. Several drivers immediately began struggling during their final runs, including Verstappen, who suffered a spin at the final corner and later described the sensation as a physical degradation of his RB22, as if the car itself was losing aero load. His teammate Hadjar also spun during the session. Hamilton's second lap never came together. A snap of oversteer in turn 1 unsettled the rest of the lap, and instead of improving, he went slower, dropping to a 1-minute 18.906 second lap. Antonelli fared no better, complaining afterward that Mercedes seemed to be doing something wrong with their tires as he lost grip entirely. Meanwhile, behind Hamilton, Norris was producing one of the best laps of his season. Corner after corner, Norris found tiny gains. A fraction in turn 4. A little more in the middle sector. Just enough speed through the final corners. When he crossed the line with a time of 1-minute 17.207 seconds, the gap was almost impossible to believe, 12 thousandths of a second. That's 0.012, the closest pole margin of the entire 2026 season. Hamilton had missed pole by less than the blink of an eye. Norris later admitted just how difficult the lap had been to execute on a newly resurfaced and unpredictable Hungaroring surface, telling reporters, "It wasn't my finest," before adding that he was very happy to be back on top after claiming his first pole of the season. And then something strange happened. Hamilton reportedly parked his Ferrari in the number 1 position in parc ferme, believing he had taken pole. Only moments later did he discover that Norris had already beaten him. That is how close qualifying had become, but the real drama was still to come. Because the story everyone heard afterward was simple: Hamilton blocked Piastri, Hamilton received a penalty, Hamilton dropped to 5th. Case closed. Except, that wasn't the full story. Ferrari had deliberately sent Hamilton out first for the final run in Q3. The plan was logical: clean air, no traffic, no interruptions. On paper, it was the perfect strategy. Then chaos erupted. Verstappen spun at the final corner. George Russell also encountered trouble and was told to stop his Mercedes near turn 1. Yellow flags appeared. Radio messages flooded into the cars. Teams scrambled to understand who was slowing down, who was pushing, and who still had a valid lap. Everything became confusing. At exactly that moment, Piastri approached Hamilton from behind on his own push lap. Ferrari tried to warn Hamilton, with race engineer Carlo Santi telling him over the radio that Piastri was pushing and that yellow flags were out. But the message came far too late, and because Formula One delays team radio broadcasts by several seconds for editorial reasons, the warning effectively arrived after Hamilton had already blocked Piastri's line into turn 1. Hamilton genuinely believed the cars behind him had already completed their laps. From his perspective, the track situation was completely different. After qualifying, Hamilton told reporters, "I was told literally when he was at the apex behind me, so I had no idea he was coming." He added that he believed everyone had already finished their laps, since he had been the first car out. And that assumption did not come from nowhere, it came from Ferrari's own strategy. The team had chosen the running order, the team controlled the information, and the warning arrived too late. Piastri had no choice but to abandon his lap, running wide at turn 1 to avoid contact. He later described the moment bluntly, saying he had seen Hamilton from the start line and watched him, expecting him to move aside. Instead, the two nearly collided, and Piastri's championship-shaping lap was gone before it had even started. The stewards investigated the incident. Hamilton received a 3-place grid penalty for unnecessarily impeding Piastri. But Hamilton was not the only driver punished in that chaotic sequence. Antonelli also received a 3-place penalty for failing to slow sufficiently under yellow flags. The Mercedes driver, who had already struggled with tire performance throughout the session, dropped from 4th to 7th. 2 different drivers. 2 different teams. One moment of complete confusion. This wasn't just a Hamilton mistake, this was an entire qualifying session thrown into chaos, and Ferrari did something unexpected afterward: they accepted responsibility. Team principal Fred Vasseur didn't hide behind excuses. He told Sky Sports F1, "We told him, but far too late," before adding, "If there is a mistake, it's our mistake." Those words changed everything. Ferrari effectively admitted that communication with Hamilton had been late, and the narrative that Hamilton alone had thrown away pole suddenly became much more complicated. Because the first mistake may not have been made by the driver, it may have been made on the pit wall. The final grid reflected the chaos. Norris on pole. Leclerc on the front row. Piastri 3rd. Verstappen 4th. Hamilton 5th. Russell 6th. Antonelli 7th. Hadjar, Arvid Lindblad, and Hülkenberg completed the top 10. Hamilton did not hide his frustration afterward. Posting on Instagram, he wrote that it was becoming difficult to hang on to positivity after picking up 3 penalties in 3 weekends, adding that going from being so close to pole to starting 5th was extremely frustrating. Still, he insisted the setbacks would not take away from the progress Ferrari had been making as a team. For Piastri and Verstappen, the chaos turned into opportunity. Both gained 2 positions on the final grid, with Piastri now starting 3rd instead of the 5th he crossed the line in, and Verstappen elevated to 4th despite his late spin. And now Ferrari faces a difficult question: what do you do when your fastest driver starts behind your other car? The Hungaroring is one of the hardest tracks in Formula One for overtaking. Its narrow, twisting layout offers few real passing zones, which is exactly why qualifying position matters so much here. Track position is everything, and starting 5th instead of 1st changes the entire complexion of the race. Hamilton also enters the race 45 points behind Antonelli in the championship. This was supposed to be the weekend where Ferrari closed the gap on the Mercedes driver leading the standings. Instead, they now face a strategic headache. Should they prioritize Leclerc, who starts 2nd and has track position on his side? Or should they back Hamilton, who looked faster all weekend but now has to fight through traffic from 5th? Either choice creates tension inside the garage, and any team orders on Sunday will be scrutinized closely given how the weekend has already unfolded. There is also the matter of tire strategy heading into the race itself. With track temperatures having climbed toward 50 degrees Celsius in qualifying, and with several drivers already reporting graining and instability on their final runs, Sunday's Grand Prix could turn into another test of tire management rather than outright pace. That works against Hamilton, who will need to pass cars rather than simply defend a position, and it adds even more weight to the mistake that cost him the front row in the first place, and perhaps that is the biggest irony of all. Ferrari built the fastest car. Hamilton delivered pole position pace. Yet nobody is talking about the speed. Everyone is talking about a radio message that arrived a few seconds too late. Because in Formula One, races are not always